Hey guys, we're back with Chapter 1, Section 2 notes, um, talking about the Neolithic Revolution. In the last video, I ended by saying that we are going to be talking about the most important thing that has ever happened in human history, maybe even the history of the world, and that is the Neolithic Revolution, which probably is something you're not aware of or that maybe you've heard of, but you don't really know what it is. So we are going to just kind of dive right in and talk about the Neolithic Revolution. And then we're going to talk about how that led to massive changes on a global scale for humans and uh, pretty much the entire world, pretty much the entire globe. Okay, so let's talk about objectives for this small but important section. So we're going to talk about the impact of the Neolithic Revolution and what we know about it, and certainly we can extrapolate from there. And then we're going to talk about how villages got started and eventually how they turned into cities, which become one of the most fundamental attributes of a civilization. Okay, so let's kind of dive right in to what is happening on the planet. So, for the vast majority of human history, from the first of our species 250,000 years ago, really up until about 12,000 years ago, we were hunter gatherers. Okay, we were nomadic, which means we were not staying in one place. We were looking for food. Now, a lot of times when we talk about nomads and being nomadic, we think that people are constantly moving, like they never, ever stop moving. And that's not entirely true. Um, Nomads and nomadic peoples today, right? So we can take our cues from them, usually have regular campsites that they would visit, at certain times of the year or every few years once the food has replenished, once the animals have come back. Hunter gatherers typically follow migratory patterns of animals that they're either hunting or are using in some other way. Um, so nomadic peoples don't necessarily just kind of like walk forever, right? They walk to a new spot. This is a good spot. Let's settle down. They set up a little campsite. Go gather food, go hang out with their families and their friends, and then once all the food is kind of taken and used in that area, move to the next spot, and so on. Um, but because they're mobile, um, nomadic peoples are usually small. We're talking about bands of maybe 20 people, maybe 40 people at the largest, kind of going around together. So we're basically just talking about extended families of little groups kind of traveling in small packs, because that's really all that the land could provide. Um, there wasn't a ton of extra food lying around. So they just had to really kind of go with what was provided by nature to them. For the most part, this isn't always true, but for the most part, men did the hunting and women did the gathering. And um, whenever we talk about this in class, which we will, um, one of the answers that is always given is that, oh, it's because men are stronger and faster and all of these things. And that's actually not the reason. That's actually the cause. So men are, on average, stronger, faster than women are. But that's not why we did the hunting. That's because we did the hunting. We have that causation order backwards, which we'll talk about the reason for this in class, maybe in a discussion board, but definitely in class. We will talk about the reason for this, um, this gendered breakdown, or what some economic historians and other historians call a division of labor, right? Dividing the work that needs to be done among different people. Okay, so during this time, we are in what is called the Paleolithic Age, which literally means the Old Stone Age. You think of Stone Age, right? You've heard that before. Stone Age materials, Stone Age technology, right? We usually just mean that as shorthand as this was really, really old, really long time ago. But it actually has a specific name, a specific meaning, and it's because that's when our tools were made out of stone. It's called the Stone Age because that's what we used to make our technology, our tools. Um, Paleolithic literally means Old Stone Age. Paleo is the prefix that means old. Um, Lithic, right? Lith, like a monolith, means stone, right? A monolith is like one big rock. Um, is a monolith, right? Lith means stone, and the IC means that it refers to a period of time. So during the Paleolithic age, literally the Old Stone Age, right? Its tools are made out of stone, right? Which is why it's a Stone Age. And also, the main religious belief of people in the Old Stone Age was something that we call animism, which is a belief in spirits in the natural world. So it's not necessarily an organized religion. There's no like set prayers or feast days or anything like that. There might not be too much of a belief in a heaven or a hell, but just a belief that there's spirits in the world that allow for things to happen. So, the men might, I don't want to use the word pray, but the men might thank maybe a deer spirit for the successful hunt of one of the deer that they killed so that they can go eat. Um, Likewise, the gatherers, the women would probably thank, just kind of the spirit of the earth to provide, the fruits and vegetables and grains that the women were able to find and then use for food for the organization or for the uh, group. Um, so animism actually comes from the Latin anima, which should sound familiar for those of you paying attention. Cor unum et anima una, right? Anima, for some reason, Holy Ghost Prep translates as mind, but almost everywhere else it is translated as spirit. That's why the order is called the Spiritans. Um, and if you ask Father Dan about it, he'll probably tell you that anima and the Holy Ghost Fathers uh, all over the world translate cor unum et anima una as one heart and one spirit. But we're special, so we do one heart, one mind. It's kind of similar ideas, but uh, anima means spirit, animism, belief in spirits. Okay, so let's get to the Neolithic Revolution, or what is sometimes called the Agricultural Revolution. Okay, Neolithic is another Stone Age, right? You see the lithic part, so they should know that this means another Stone Age. But Neo, maybe if you're taking a guess, means new. So the Neolithic Revolution or the Neolithic time period is the new Stone Age. Okay, so tools are still made out of stone, but they're used for different purposes, and that purpose is for farming. Okay, and this is the biggest thing that has ever happened to our species was the ability and knowledge of farming. Instead of tools being made for hunting purposes, like spears and bows and arrows and stuff, you start to see tools that are used for tilling the soil, right? A stone plow or shovel or something that would be used to break up the soil and plant seeds. Now we don't really know how this started. We do know that it started in Mesopotamia, which is a region in the Middle East, and we know that it spread throughout the world without humans spreading it. So you see these pockets of farming that spring up almost randomly all around the same time um, without there being any cultural exchange or any spread of information between these groups. So it's a pretty remarkable thing that humans kind of all around the world, within a few, 100 years, all figured out farming on their own. So how did it start? We think it started by um, women and seed uh, knowledge. So again, I talked to you before about being nomadic. That there's kind of these consistent campsites that they would visit, and certainly humans didn't really know much about seeds. Probably we don't think that they knew too much about seeds, but we think what might have happened is, women were discarding kind of the leftover, what we would call seeds, but the parts of like fruits or veggies that aren't edible, into a certain region, like maybe like it's like, oh, that was like the trash area. And then when they came back to that area a year later, they noticed that there was a lot more of that food there, right? So they said, that's where we put all of the kind of trash that we didn't want to eat. Um, Maybe that's why there's all this food here. So let's try it again. And again, humans, one of the things that makes Homo sapiens different is we're tinkerers. We like to mess with things and try to figure out ways to make them better. So we think that these women, with their connections to the plant world, right, the fruits and vegetables and grains that they were gathering, made this connection between seeds and the extra food, and therefore started this whole agricultural revolution, right? So, um, we have, most likely we have women to thank for literally everything that we have today, uh, from a societal standpoint, from a civilization standpoint, which we'll talk about later. There's some other theories around this too, by the way. It's not just this one. There's some theories that people kind of knew how to farm for a while. It just kind of didn't take off on the larger scale until then. Some people think it might have been like related to fertility, right? That they knew what seeds were, and that it was reproduction. So there was a cyclical reproductive, like festival almost, that they would have then planted the seeds and then watched the crops grow. Um, but we know that once we started farming, a lot of things changed. Now, environmentally, some things helped us along the way. Um, the ice age, the most recent ice age, was ending around 12,000 years ago, which allowed for longer growing seasons. There's Temperatures were rising, so that means that the seasons where it wasn't bitter cold or crazy hot were getting longer. Land was getting drier, making it more um, usable or arable for farming. And once we had control over our food supply, and this is really the most important thing here, guys, we're the first time in history that we know of, and not history, first time in the lifetime of the universe that we know of, we're the only species to be able to control our own food supply. Right? Think about that. Right? We now can provide food whenever we need it because we can grow it ourselves. We're not reliant on the environment and what just happens to be around. We can actually plan for the future. And this steady source of food allows a population boom. And guys, I'm going to tell you this here, and I'll say it in class. If you find any upperclassmen at Holy Ghost, any of them, ask any of them, ask any of your friends, find a stranger, ask them, and if you say more food, because Mr. Reeling said to ask you more food, they will respond more people. I'll stake my reputation on it, right? Because with more food being available, you have a growth in population. This population boom sets off a cycle of continual development, which we'll talk about actually probably in the next video because this one's getting a little long. So this growth of food, think about it. So if I'm walking around and I'm in a group of 20, I'm a nomadic hunter gatherer, right? And I got 20 people, but I'm only finding enough food for 15. What's going to happen? 5 people are going to die, right? They're going to be malnourished. Maybe they get sick. Maybe they, because of their malnourishment, maybe they, break a leg or something and get taken away by a predator. Maybe they don't have the stamina to outrun, another predator or something. So because we don't have enough food, that's going to negatively impact the size of the group. It's going to get smaller. People are going to die. If I have enough food for 20 people, then everybody's well fed and everybody, theoretically survives. And even if someone dies, right, someone's probably going to be born not too long later and they'll have enough food to survive into adulthood. If we have enough food for 40 people, we have all of this extra food. That means that all of these kids that are being born, right, that might die from malnourishment, whose mothers might die in childbirth, and there's all these other concerns around that, might grow up to be healthy because there's enough food for them to survive. So our group of 20 suddenly becomes a group of 40, which can then, if our food supply keeps going up, we can just keep increasing our population. It is a steady cycle of growth. As the food sources of food, as the food supply goes up, the population goes up. It's one of those like fundamental laws in nature, I guess. Thomas Malthus came up with it. You don't need to know that. But this connection between food supply and population is huge. More food always equals more people. That is probably one of the most important things that you will hear me say, and I will say it probably 1,000 times this year, that more food equals more people. Okay. Now, what really started to change too was the use of our kind of technology, our ideas, to clear land for farm usage, right? So it's not just, oh, we're using this plot of land. Now humans start actually, intentionally changing their environment to make it better for farming. That is a huge change. Because now it's not just we're kind of gaming the system by planting things where they would otherwise be planted. Now we're clearing out woodland areas so that we can have access to the soil so that we can then grow our food, right? We can't eat trees, but we can eat, fruits from certain trees, or we can start planting veggies or things like that, or more likely grains, right? Wheat, rye, barley, things that we can use that are high in calories. We'll talk more about that in the next video. And one of the best ways to clear farmland is to use the thing that Homo erectus discovered, which was fire, which we call slash and burn or swidden agriculture. Right? It's when you just burn a bunch of forest down. It clears the land. It's very easy. It's a lot easier than chopping trees down. And without property rights coming about, without different countries, different neighborhoods, things like that, probably not affecting too many people. Plus, it has the added benefit of pre-cooking any food that you find. So humans started using slash and burn to start clearing the farmland. Okay, I'm going to cut this video now. It's been about 18 minutes, and we will come back with kind of the next few steps around what happens once we've discovered farming. Because like I said, this is the singular most important thing that's ever happened in our history. Okay, until next video, I will see you guys then.